This is CD4Peace.
March 2022, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the state's Parental Rights in Education bill, barring public school teachers from holding classroom instructions about sexual orientation or gender identity for students in kindergartens through third grade, or in a manner that is not age-appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. It also prohibits classroom discussions about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels or in a specific manner. This is Samantha, and welcome to the 4 Minutes for Peace podcast series. In this episode, we will be delving into another aspect of what we work here at CD4Peace, which is cultural diversity. Stay tuned to know more about LGBT plus rights. The Parental Rights in Education legislation, which opponents label the Don't Say Gay bill, is part of a flurry of measures introduced by Republican lawmakers around the country. Florida's law is only the most recent expression of attempts to curb classroom discussion on sexual orientation or gender identity across the country. Teaching about sexual orientation and gender identity isn't part of the first grade curriculum, but talking about families is part of the curriculum, and some students may have 2 moms or 2 dads. What is truly concerning is that these anti-LGBTQ bills have been coupled with legislative proposals that forbid teaching about structural racism and slavery, patriarchy and sexism, on the grounds that these concepts make others uncomfortable. More than 225 bills that target LGBT content or identities have been filed in the first 3 months of 2022, according to LGBTQ media watchdog GLAAD. With the increased visibility of transgender and non-binary people, we have seen these bills expand to also prohibit educating students about gender diversity. When we segment children off and tell them that they do not exist and that they don't matter, and effectively erase them from classrooms, we effectively erase them or prevent them from expressing their true identity. A 2019 report from GLSEN, an LGBTQ+ advocacy organization, found that 2/3 of LGBTQ+ youth respondents had not been exposed to representations of LGBTQ+ people, history, or events in lessons at school. At schools that did have an LGBTQ+ inclusive curriculum, 59% of respondents said they often or frequently heard the word gay used in a negative way, compared with almost 80% of students at school that did not have an inclusive curriculum. A joint statement by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and the LGBTQ Awareness Organization warned the law could harm a community that already reports high rates of seriously considering suicide. Researchers largely agree that at least part of the reason for the elevated rates of suicidal thoughts, plans, and attempts and poor mental health outcomes found among LGBTQ people is the social stigma, prejudice, and discrimination that contributes to the minority stress of being LGBTQ, the group said. The escalation of state policies that are harmful to LGBTQ people will only heighten and intensify experiences of rejection and discrimination, and could lead to an increase in suicidal ideation. Therefore, it is important to note that laws like this have a negative impact on the mental health of children, and we must fight against all types of oppression to ensure the safety of the next generation. The legislation puts negative rhetoric around aspects of gender identity and sexual orientation that are not heteronormative. So, for example, if you are not cisgender and heterosexual, you are to be shamed. To prevent that shame, child psychologists say that it is important for children to see themselves and their families represented in stories. Attacks like this are a product of a small minority and of people pushing their agenda to dismantle diversity at all costs.
Four Minutes for Peace, podcast produced by CD4Peace, Cultural Diversity and Sustainable Development for Peace, organization established in Geneva since 2018.